Good morning. I'm delighted to be at the RiskMathics Risk Management Trading Conference once again here live in Mexico City and joined by a 30-year capital markets veteran from Brazil. Lucy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Would love for you to introduce yourself. You've had a phenomenal background in Brazil and are very familiar with the entire Latin American region. We're going to be discussing so many interesting topics today here, but on a more personal level, could you explain first your background and your passion and experience in the capital markets industry?
Of course. Thank you, Sylvia, for having me, and RiskMathics for having me. So I'm Lucy Pamboukdjian, 30 years experience in the capital markets, especially in Brazil, but mostly in South America. I've worked for 20 years at what we call Bovespa and then BM&F Bovespa, which is now B3. And then 5 years at the Santiago Stock Exchange, which is now Nuam Exchange in Chile. And after that, like 5 years with financial innovation and board directors and a lot of the capital market, the new capital market that is happening in Brazil. So you asked me about my passion, and my passion is the Latin American capital markets, putting everybody together and think about solutions that we can co-create among each other, among ourselves, to really revamp and strengthen the region and the impact that the capital markets do to the entire economic development. So I'm very, very happy to be here with you and discussing these topics at this Mexican. This is my first time at RiskMathics. I'm so amazed with what I'm seeing with the panels and the discussions that we have. So I'm very happy to be with you too.
Well, we're delighted to have you here, and you have a phenomenal background. And as you know, a big objective here at the conference is to just build awareness of the capital markets industry, innovation, the new emerging technologies, all topics of discussion that are very close to your background. From an educational standpoint, what RiskMathics has done is really help promote the financial literacy in the trading arena, everything from equities to derivatives, and also really touch on topics such as the emerging tech and the innovation, which I know is also a big part of your background. Can you just describe from an educational standpoint the importance of forums such as the one we're here today? And I know you've already gotten a sense of some of the programs and the unique role that RiskMathics plays with this conference for the region. So would love your perspectives on the broader financial literacy, educational platforms such as the one here today.
Yeah, I mean, what we see in the story and the background of Brazil for the last maybe 25 years, all the results that we are having today is due to the financial education investments that were done, not only by the exchange, not only by conference organizer like RiskMathics, but the entire market. And I mean that because brokers have to be involved. It doesn't make sense if the demand side, like the investor side, is looking towards doing the right things, right operations, and understanding better the impact that long-term or short-term, depending on the strategy, investments are made, but they don't know how to do that. And they keep like using the investment industry as a gambling opportunity. Like, I bet this is going to do right or wrong. So this is not the idea, right? So the education really is the key element that helped Brazil create a development path for their capital markets. So initiatives like the one and the program here is really complete and deep in several topics of the industry, derivatives, equities. I even heard about tokens and all the other financial infrastructure assets that are surging and coming nowadays. This is important to have like classes and information and spread awareness because this is the way not only investors but also traders, also the ones that develop the products can sit together and create opportunities for everybody. And when we look again, at the Brazilian story, this was back in 2001 maybe, when the exchange had just, the Brazilian market had just gone through several crises, the currency crisis that we had in 2000. There was the government pushing for taxes, specifically for investors, and the international investors that were the main player in the market in the last years of the 90s because of the privatization programs and other openness that were done in Brazil for international investors. They were flying to quality, so nobody was trading in Brazil. And this diagnosis that we made to understand why the market is not going forward, why we don't have investors involved, a big chunk of discussion and debates with the society. And for our surprise, people didn't know about the stock market. They just knew that everybody talks about this, but they don't know what this is about. They even thought this was a casino or a black box type of strategy. So the exchange decided to create this huge investment into financial education, entire Brazil, people in the big cities and the small cities, in universities, even at the beach at that time. It was funny because at summertime we went to the beach to give classes about financial education. And long story short, what we see nowadays is 10 million investors trading in Brazil. Back in the day, it was 60,000 investors. Now it's 10 million. It's still a lot of room for growth, but this is a proof, in my opinion, that absolutely investing in education will create a generational transformation towards bringing more investors and more people prepared to be part, really, and invest in the market, with the sense of investing in the stock market or the derivatives or the opportunities that we had is also part of being a partner of the big companies in the market and create financial development for the entire nation.
It's unbelievable. It's such an interesting case study and how comprehensive of a program Brazil embarked on years ago and is now reaping the benefits. And in fact, I think markets like here in Mexico can learn from some of those initiatives. I'm curious from your perspective, how the futures market in particular has grown, because there's the general education, which is incredibly important to dispel some of the myths, and you touched upon many of them, right? Many folks still think that investing in the stock market is a risk, and it's a gamble, or it's like trading in a casino, as you've mentioned, right? So you first had to overcome some of the general educational components. But today, Brazil is known in the region for having a very robust futures industry market, which is more complex. Yeah. Could you talk us through that and explain how they got there?
So futures, BM&F, which was the original exchange for futures in Brazil, was created in the 80s. And it was for big traders, right? They were trading US dollar contracts and all those things. And then at some point, the exchange decided to put the mercantile products like coffee, sugar, and ethanol and other things that commodities that we have in Brazil, but still was a place for big investors. In 2004, looking into the experience that Bovespa, the stock exchange, was doing with financial education, all this strategy that was designed in 2001 to go further and talk about and do financial education, the other exchange on derivatives also decided to jump in. And they first created, at that time, we still had the open outcry in Brazil. So it was not really an invitation for retail investors to be part of that, right? So it was really for big investors. But in 2004, the Futures Exchange decided to create a home broker platform, and they created small contracts, mini contracts that we call. It took some time. They created financial education programs with their brokers too. Maybe it took a longer time for everybody to understand because derivatives are very different from equities. They have deadlines in which you have to put not only margins, but decide whether you are staying with the contract or calling it, and etc. So it took some time, but people started trading. Also, retail investors trading futures on equities, futures on indices like the IPO de Ecopetrol, which is the main index, and the other products that we had. And so now when we look at this 10 million number of investors, a lot of them are futures investors and not really only stock exchange or equities investors. So again, I mean, it takes time. I normally make a joke on that. Rome wasn't built in a day, right?
That's fun. I say it all the time. I agree with you. But
so that's the story. You have to invest and see this as a long-term shot because it's going to put the crop today and you'll have the flower in 10, maybe 15 years. But you have to start. And this is my perspective when I see financial education in Latin America, working in Chile. There's a lot of investment on education too, but I wouldn't say a lot. There is some level of investment on that, but sometimes exchanges, governments, and other players in the market think that this is a problem for brokers. Brokers are the ones that have to go out and prospect and do the financial education. Maybe part of this is right. It's not just the infrastructure that should, like government and universities and the exchange itself. Of course, brokers have to be part of that. CFA society and other players that enhance the quality of the assets and of the education are also part of that. But my point is, altogether we have to think about solutions and not just waiting for, this is something that the brokers should do or this is something the exchange should do. We have to all together sit down and talk. And in Brazil specifically, when you look at the numbers we have today, of course, Brazil, it's a huge country. We have over 200 million people. A lot of the results that we see today is because 1, 2, or 3 players decided to take bold steps on that. We have a brokerage house that was born as a financial education initiative called, it's nowadays a broker, they're called XP. And now they the most important platform in attracting retail investors to the exchange because they've been investing in that. And if we don't look the stock or the equities market, but we look into financial education generally, this new digital banks that came in the last 10 years, a lot of them, because they had great ideas, but because they convinced the regulator and then the regulator, central bank, pushed for financial innovation, are also the result of the huge bancarization that we have in Brazil. And this is XP, Nubank, and the other digital innovators that decided to take bold steps because the population is there. People need to invest, otherwise our pension funds are not enough for our longevity. Let's say we are living 100 years and we need to cope with the challenges that we have at age 60 or 70 when we're no longer that functional to make a lot of money. So we need to save for the future and do the investments accordingly. So some players were very important, but it's, again, an initiative that has to put all the stakeholders together to think about the strategy for the country.
It's a fascinating approach, and as I said earlier, a terrific case study. And what you've described is a phenomenal ecosystem that has been built with all the main stakeholders and an integrated and ongoing comprehensive educational approach, which, is very much the idea and the concept and the mission behind what RiskMathics tries to do all year round and with this conference. The last question that I really want to hone in on is you have a background in the entire South American region, and you've spent some time outside of Brazil, also in Chile. What other markets do you say are starting to really ramp up their broader awareness, educational efforts? What progress have you seen in the region? And then final thoughts and advice for Mexico in general.
Well, definitely we see Colombia doing a big effort on that. So now the exchanges of Colombia, Chile, and Peru have integrated. They created new one. But I think Colombia has always been, since maybe 2004, 2005. At that time, we used to exchange a lot of information among the exchanges. And I remember they had a particular IPO that was Ecopetrol. And like they did an effort in the public offering to have more retail investors. And at that time, I think they reached numbers like 100,000 investors buying shares of Ecopetrol. And there was this joke among us that if they call an assembly, a general assembly of shareholders, they will need to book probably football or soccer game stadium to put everybody together. So definitely Colombia, we see with good eyes. Something in Argentina too. And the exchange there is doing important efforts, even to create products like ETFs and other products that are more suitable to retail investors, the ones that maybe don't have the time and the tools to do a very like dedicated price value type of strategy, but they do have like basket type of opportunities. So Argentina, we can see them too. And now going into Mexico, we do have some brokers here that are more willing to financial education or going towards retail investors. You have millions of like the youth in Mexico is the one that will be part of this new generation of bankerization and participation in the financial markets generally and capital markets. So I see that other initiatives like RiskMathics and even the brokers being closer to the exchange and sitting together to think about a strategy would be very relevant. In fact, I'm going to give this advice to the exchange here.
Absolutely. Well, it's been fascinating having this dialogue with you. We want to thank you for your very interesting perspectives. A lot more will be discussed later today, and I'm looking forward to it. But it's a pleasure seeing you here, Lucy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thank you.